Hello everyone. This is going to be an addendum to part 6 because there's a few things that I wanted to add on about the Federal Reserve and the powers it has, why we need to get rid of it. I don't know if you realize this, but the Federal Reserve itself probably has more power than the federal government does itself. Why is that? Well, the Federal Reserve, first of all, is an entity unto itself. It's not part of the federal government. It's run by bankers, and the only connection that, or the only influence that the government has over it is they're able to appoint the Federal Reserve Chairman, who is currently Ben Bernanke. Now, the Federal Reserve can influence things going on in this country just by the way it has control over the money supply. In other words, it can stimulate the economy at certain times, cause the economy to go into recessions or depressions at different times. And by doing that at different times, it could, in fact, affect different things. Like one of the things that it might affect would be a presidential election. Now, how would it affect a presidential election? Well, we all know that presidential elections are greatly affected by the economy. So whether the economy is perceived as doing well by the public at any particular time would affect whether somebody was reelected into office. In fact, right now, the Federal Reserve can affect whether Obama gets reelected just by its stimulative monetary policies. For instance, it can stimulate the economy, make the stock market go up by dumping money into the economy right around during just before an election. And if people perceive the economy as doing well at that particular time, they'll be more inclined to vote for the sitting president rather than the one the persons running against him. So in that way, they can affect who runs the country. They also can affect all kinds of things overseas. I don't know if you realize this or not, but in the last downturn in the economy, when the world banking system was ready to collapse in 2008, the Federal Reserve pumped probably $3 trillion into the economy, but only $2 trillion of that went into the banks in the US. Another trillion went to prop up banks overseas. Now, why would an organization like the Federal Reserve have the power to take taxpayer money and use it to prop up banks overseas without our even knowing about it? We only found out about this stuff through subpoenas of the Federal Reserve. They were forced to come before Congress and explain what they were doing with their money. And through these explanations, we found out after the fact that all this money had gone overseas. And in fact, Ben Bernanke even said he didn't even know what banks it went to. It just went overseas. He admitted to $500 billion at one point had gone overseas, and that it had just gone through the banking system overseas, and he didn't even know what happened to it or how it was going to be paid back or anything like that. Totally blasé. And then just saying, well, he had the power to do that. Well, he does have the power to do that. He can cause economies to collapse or be stimulated or be under his control. They have total power. One of the ways they get the power over countries is by making loans to foreign countries, and then when those countries waste that money, this money is channeled first of all through the IMF and the World Bank. And then when these countries waste the money, can't pay it back, they make more loans to them so that they can just pay interest on those loans. So that way these countries become more and more in debt and are under control of the World Bank and the IMF. And their people can never get out of debt because they're burdened with these continuously increasing interest payments. And that's the way the IMF and the World Bank work. They're not good organizations, even though they're portrayed as such. They actually put people into monetary slavery. So these are some reasons why we need to get rid of the Federal Reserve, because first of all, we've lost our sovereignty. We've given the power of the government to a monetary organization within the United States that's run by bankers, and that this organization has the power to do whatever it wants with our currency and our money, and these people are not elected, and only one of them is actually appointed by the government. Now, I hope you can see by what I'm saying here why this organization needs to be abolished. There's a couple of misstatements I made in the other tape. One was that the Depression started in 1927. Of course, that was 1929 when it started. And I think I also said that the Federal Reserve was under the control or partial control of the federal government. It isn't really under the control of the federal government. It's really an entity run by bankers who may not even have the best interests of the U.S. in mind.